CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. Welcome back, everyone, to CMMS Radio. You see these guys on screen. It's Vivek and Bob. They're with ITXH Xperts Hub, and today is episode 3 of Asset Operations Management in Action. We're going to get into the smart scheduler that they have within the AMI suite. And it's not really about product pitches or anything like that. If you've seen the first 2 episodes, you know that these guys have been around and kind of understand their roles as it comes to delivering for clients in their asset management environments. You know, it is about asset performance management. It is about business intelligence and how you leverage all the data you can get your hands on, provided it's in the right context, to make better decisions, create more reliability, all these good things we're always talking about. But today I want to get into, and I'm going to start with you, Bob, this idea around inefficiencies and the battle behind inefficiencies that everyone's always fighting. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up right away, because just last week, I was talking with a client of ours up in the Northwest, actually Vancouver, and he was bringing up that, his role is as an operations director, but he interfaces with the planning team, the scheduling team, and the way their organization is set, they've got multiple garages where they're bringing in their vehicles to do maintenance, the whole fleet. And each garage has a separate planner. And what's been happening is that one individual is kind of stuck between, the maintenance team wants certain things done at a certain time, and the operations team wants certain things done at a certain time. So that inefficiency that you mentioned, it impacts utilization, it impacts labor costs, it impacts vehicles not being out in revenue generating postures. It has a lot of impacts, and that planner's kind of like stuck right in the middle of those two sides of the organization, trying to figure out, well, how do I maximize these efficiencies?
Yeah, that's that wedge that they're in. So you're saying they had an independent planner for each of the garages.
Correct.
And they're getting hit from both sides. So there's multiple planners getting hit from both sides, on operators and maintenance people. And so that's where resources get clogged and you lose visibility. So I'm going to switch it over to Vivek. And I want to ask about how that kind of materializes. And I want to talk at least a little bit. I want to hear a little bit about how Smart Scheduler addresses that.
No, thank you. Nice to meet again, Greg. When we work with our customers, they were in a tough job of just managing and balancing the workload, price and costs, and then labor, materials, visibility, and everything. Right. That's the biggest challenge for the planners has. Sometimes the planning is done by the department leaders or the maintenance supervisors. The different roles does the planning differently, but what they lack is the visibility of what's going on across in their department or in their plant. That's the biggest challenge. So when we looked at uh, how do we solve the problem, yes, you can actually export and then put it in a Microsoft project file and then get a visibility, all those things. But when you can adjust the schedule and then push it back into EAM, right, or any maintenance system. But you have to go outside the system, bring it back in, right? There's an integration and everything. How do we solve this problem, right? So we built Smart Scheduler in order to, which is tightly integrated with the maintenance system. You can see the schedule, all the work in your own department or in your organization are based on specific filters with a weekly look ahead or a monthly look ahead or a quarterly look ahead. And then you can balance your work, right? So that it's easy to make the changes, align the work, and then save it. Now you make all these adjustments and then save it. It is reflected in EAM immediately,
Mm.
right? So nobody has to go open the work order again, change the schedule again, or assign resources. So we built a lot of functionality and features within that ITX, the smart scheduler, uh, which actually helped even with the centralized planning, because nobody has to open the work order and then save it again unless they
Yeah.
want to, right? You're just the basic centralized planning, or even the planning activity itself got reduced from one day, the whole day, to just an hour.
It's a big,
So
it's
it's
a
a
big,
huge reduction, stress relief for the planners, right? Pretty much.
sounded like, and Bob, it sounded like you had something to throw in there.
No, I think Vivek's spot on. It really is about being able to have that one-stop shop, one place for them to do their work. And most CMMS and EAM systems, you've got to hunt and peck around the system in order to schedule a work order and to assign the right tradesperson, to make sure that the due dates are right and everything's properly set in stone. The goal that Vivek had, and they've achieved this, was to have one interface, one common place that is a visual interface, and it's presented in a Gantt style. So you've got all your work order information on the left hand side. You could drag and drop it and work with it and filter it, and you got a calendar, Gantt style type of visualization on the right hand side, and it allows them to see how they want to stack certain work into certain shifts, or by trade or by crew. And you can also toggle out to a work order. You can do quick updates. You can do quick views. There's tooltips all over the screen. So it
Mhm.
really was designed to be that one place, that one interface. So no longer does that scheduler or planner have to hunt and peck around the system.
So when I think about everything Vivek said and what you said, and I think about the idea of a Gantt chart, this will be backwards on the screen, but a Gantt chart and a calendar view, and we want to look at schedules. Planning and scheduling, two different functions, but when we have that Gantt chart capability and that visibility as it relates to the resources, what's currently assigned, does it also show, and I guess this is a question for Vivek, does it also show what's available? Does that account for things like buffer? Because, and I'll finish the question. It's kind of complicated, but the whole idea here is things change so often on the fly, so that going out, coming back in, downloading, updating, pushing back up, finding this out, then changing it again, that's a complete waste of time. Now, some people have no choice and they got to do that with whatever they're using, but is this being done based on a combination of the data resources and maybe a little sprinkling of AI?
We did not. So there is a roadmap of AI that is coming into play, but
Okay.
right now there is no AI involved. But it's all very tightly integrated with all the work that is in place based on your filtering. It shows everything, just like Bob mentioned, right? The Gantt style view and a lot of work order related information on the left hand side. And they can filter out, right? It can even just download and let you plan more than 6,000 work orders at a time. It is
Wow.
fast enough. Yeah. So it allows that. But again, it depends on the client machine. But it is very powerful. You can filter down based on an equipment, or you can do filter based on a trade. A lot of functionality in place. It also allows the planners to see, okay, there is a work order placeholder, right? Which is a preventive maintenance that is scheduled probably in a week.
Mhm.
We don't know what that work order is. They can right click and then preview the work order. It has a lot of functionality in there. You are it basically, that's a new screen for the planning and scheduling role. Whoever is playing the planning and scheduling role, they don't have to leave from their week, as long as they're not editing the work orders. They're just adjusting the schedules and balancing the workload. They just stick to that particular screen and then adjust and balance. And you don't need a specific planner or scheduler in order to manage it. Like if you are managing a weekly schedule or a monthly schedule, right? You just do it on Monday morning. If it is the start of the week, done, right? And it takes 1 to 2 hours. You don't have to go back and then touch any of the work orders unless you want to, right? And even that, you can open it right from the planning scheduling, that Gantt planner itself, the smart scheduler, edit it, and then come back and then do whatever you want to do on the planning and scheduling.
Yeah, and the whole time you're talking about it, I'm kind of looking up and around because I'm trying to imagine it and kind of visualize it. And this whole thing about schedules, the fact that they're dynamic, things come up, things change, that's one source of kind of disruption, but there's not a lot that we can do to change that other than being in a better position to manage it. I don't think that's rocket science. I just think it's intensive, right? It's arduous. It's a lot of working with this data. So this will help in that regard. I want to switch back over to Bob. When it comes to the actual seeing this in action, you've worked with so many teams, you've been in the facilities, you've been there in those meeting rooms where they're looking at this type of thing. When it comes to, the asset management itself, the maintenance practices, when those PMs should be done, how they should be optimized, where you're actually finding proof for the existing schedule. Have you been able to see this in action on the plant floor and get that feedback directly from your clients where they tell you the actual, what are we getting from this?
Yeah, because it goes back to what I was saying before with, the audience for this, the consumers of the data, if you will, is not just the planner. It's also the maintenance team that's going to be receiving the alerts and the notifications based on what's been scheduled,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the production or operations team that's going to know how to anticipate downtime. When does that machine or that vehicle that's revenue generating or production related need to be down so that the maintenance can be done, whether that maintenance is break fix or corrective. Bottom line is it has to be down. So yes, I mean, definitely there's multiple people that benefit from proper scheduling. And you also made mention of something, Greg, earlier in this recording, that Microsoft Excel. Yeah, we all know a large percentage of organizations plan and schedule in Microsoft Excel.
Yes.
Our goal was to make this systematic, to make it butted up against that EAM database, sitting side by side directly within that EAM solution. In this case, we developed it for Hexagon EAM. And shout out to Hexagon because we're now officially an alliance partner, a technology partner. So thank you, Hexagon. And bottom line is this is all systematic. You don't have to worry about the fact that somebody has to be a rocket scientist on Microsoft Excel in order to flow all the data that needs to be put together to
Yeah.
to do this.
You're
Whether there's AI sprinkled in or not, bottom line is it's directly interfacing to and from that EAM database, posting the updates back to it, as well as getting all that information in. And it's a visual aid to not only the planner, but you could put Smart Scheduler on a board out on the plant floor so that
Yes.
everybody could see what work's being done and when certain machines or production lines need to be turned off.
and when something changed. I mean, it's you got
Exactly.
all this stuff you guys are talking about. And when you bring up the Excel, I'm thinking about formulaic operation of Excel. I can remember in situations I was in. So being on the CMMS side, maybe it was something we were managing within the business and the work that we were doing to get to market or something like this. Or maybe it was a client that had their own spreadsheet. I would have to call people and say, "Hey, what was that formula? How do I build that formula?" And they're like, "Well, did you use help and all that?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that, man. I'm calling you because you're my resident guru or something like that." And then clients, they have this same situation. So, first, this will be directed at you, Vivek, but you could always kick it back over to Bob. We see this in these maintenance intensive environments, asset intensive environments. We're talking about, production, getting more throughput, all that stuff, right? Everybody knows that. But if you don't have contingency plans for when that person that's an expert with your spreadsheets is unavailable, busy on another project for a week and you can't wait a week, you have a couple of hours or maybe one day to get something turned around, or that person is out on vacation, or worse, maybe they've left and you don't have anybody that has that skill set. This would then help with that exact scenario as well, because once it's configured, right?
Yes. So it goes by the rules. You can customize or extend the rules in order to how to align the work orders, right? It can even show the overdue work orders, right? And you can adjust the overdue work orders. So everything is built in, and it's configurable. The color coding, it highlights, right? There's a lot of features involved. Certainly, at some point of time, I think we would share some of the screenshots. That way, you can actually pop up, right, and then show that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of functionality. There is less dependency, right, on anybody. You are the owner of your specific department or area specific scheduling and planning. You just do your own, save it, and then it goes to the maintenance supervisors or the technicians in the field to execute the work, right? And that is how it is done, right?
Excellent. Anything to add on that one, Bob?
No, I was just going to say, you mentioned, crazy formulas in Excel, and calculated fields. That's included in Smart Scheduler. We have the capability using the data and whatever logic you want us to build into it to put calculated fields into the visual interface so that, if it happens to be, say, a bus coming in for maintenance and you need to track the mileage and you want to know the projected mileage as of the point of time that that PM needs to be, actually performed. All those calculated fields, whatever the calculation may be, are also something that could be included in this solution.
Yeah, and I'm trying to connect the whole scenario, how it benefits the business as a whole, how it really benefits those frontline technicians when it comes to, they might not see that this is benefiting them, but we do know that scheduling or lack thereof is a real problem because they can't stay on the move. They get pulled to different sides of a garage, of a plant, of an entire grounds. So this helps there. I want to ask you, Bob, on outcomes, some of the measurable outcomes you've seen so far that you could share.
Yeah, good example. And I'm just going to stick with my, trans agency type of example. One of the benefits that they now have is that they could stack work when a given bus or revenue generating vehicle has to be pulled off of the road. And the idea there is, as long as it's going to be off the road, I want to do my primary inspections, my primary maintenance, and also do all my secondary work. If it's going to be in there for 4 hours, let's get as much done as possible so I'm not bringing it back 3 or 4 days or even a week later. I want to keep that vehicle on the road. I want to keep it in production. So that goes back to, keeping the operations side of the house happy, because you're minimizing that downtime and you're increasing the uptime that you could be generating revenue. So that's a good example, downtime reduction, uptime, increase. Another good example is just labor utilization, being able to, keep everybody, doing the work that has to be done and keeping it smart. Goes back to what you were just saying, Greg, about, the certain trade, the electrician may not be available to us on certain days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So I schedule accordingly in order to make sure that I'm stacking the work at the right time. And hey, if I need to get somebody that's, a trainee involved in the process so they can learn about, given types of maintenance or, repairs, I can schedule that accordingly as well. So a lot of, good outcomes, a lot of good benefits that all seem to, reduce those bottom line, costs that are, affecting that bottom line.
Yeah. So now, bringing it back to Vivek, you've got reductions in admin time. You've got hours that are being saved on a daily basis, multiplied by days. Obviously, that's the kind of magical ROI we would expect. And then, obviously, to find out the true ROI, we're going to have to actually look backwards. It's pretty hard to project necessarily. But what are some of the other things you would add to this? And then I kind of want to switch it up to a new topic.
Right. So we are all talking about operational labor productivity, which is absolutely a great improvement, a good labor utilization, right? Uh, but one of the important things is if you have a proper visibility, proper scheduling, you have a proper inventory management.
Mm,
There's a benefit towards that, right? Uh, because one of our customers has 30 different locations,
mm,
right? They are also in a different environment where they're offshore, meaning in the waters, right? Their operations. They have a very long lead time of inventory management because they're not near shore. It takes a long time for them for the inventory to be delivered. In which case, uh, they need the visibility of, okay, it's not just 1 week look ahead. They need a 90-day look ahead. They need a 180-day look ahead, right? And then look at what is coming, what we need to schedule, because even the crew is not readily available because crew is on a rotation basis, every 3 or 4 weeks rotation. So they need a very better planning, very good planning. And not only that, they have a very big work orders, right? Could be capital, right? Uh, those are like every 2 years or 5 year work orders. And then for the parts that are needed for that kind of a work order is like you need to put them put your orders in place at least 1 year ahead.
yeah, and those are the kinds of things that everybody's maybe not thinking about when they're out here generalizing, and why I'm always so interested in the specificity, not only of what solutions do, who's there at the solution provider to, really help the clients, to understand the clients, but client by client by client, there's so much variance, which is why the cookie cutter platforms can only go so far. Sure, there's environments where that's great, that's good, you're doing your work orders, some basic asset management stuff like that, but when you get to these levels of complexity, I must confess that I always preferred uncomplicated systems. However, I've come to realize through all the different people I get to talk to and solutions I get to learn about now, these last 3 coming up on 4 years, the complexity or perceived complexity is because environments have so much variance. But a
Yes.
solution needs that level of configurability and other tools like AMI Suite in order to further match the technology to what they actually do and what they actually deal with in their specific manufacturing or production environments that are heavily dependent on, and we all know this, maintenance, proper maintenance, optimization, scheduling out. You talk about something like MRO storeroom. Shout out to my buddy Andy Gager. He'd say, well, it's not a simple process of just, hey, let's clean this up and organize it. What does it have to do with when it comes to schedules, spares? How long does it take to get them? You're telling me like 1 year. There's got to be environments where it's even longer lead times than that. And then what do you do when you get a ship that's blocking the Suez Canal? And that starts to change everything. So this puts visibility. So I want to switch it up, switch the topic. So we've been talking about the smart scheduler. It's our third episode, but I want to talk about Streamline Conferences. And the Streamline Conferences event is coming up in Greenville, South Carolina. That's going to be February 9th through 12th. And that's an event that's really focused on community. The theme this coming year is Speak for the Assets. Uh, Hexagon EAM is all about this conference and making it possible for people to connect in a community where there's learning. But Vivek, you're giving a presentation, and I believe you're going to have a co-presenter. Can you tell us just a little bit, without giving away everything, but what that's going to be about so that people know to look forward to it and get themselves to this conference?
Yeah. So thank you. Just to talk about the Streamline. Streamline is a different conference compared to any other, right, conference, because it's very specific to the enterprise asset management, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the participants who sign up are very eager to know the best practices, what is in there in EAM, how can we use the product or the processes much better. I think that's the value they're looking at. So as part of that, what we are presenting is we have a customer, his name is Bobby Ray, who's joining us and presenting his real experience on using a smart scheduler and some of the AMI components, right? And he will talk about that. So that's directly listening from the customer and how they are using it, how they are benefiting it, what is the value out of it. But apart from that, what we are trying to do is how do you unlock the data and then make sense of the data, right? It is not just making data sense. The really how you can really get more value out of the information that you have acquired for over the years, right? And what is the benefit? It's not just reports. It should be more than that, right? Your predictability, your insights, combining everything, identifying the root causes. How can you use the data, whether it is ITXH, IT Xperts Hub, AMI Suite, or something else? Look forward for that, which should reduce the stress levels of the technician who's trying to spend more time on the tools or his own work rather than on the system. Give the user a good detailed summary of what happened, where you should focus, right? What is important, rather than let the technician dig himself by himself or herself, digging through the data, identifying what the root cause is, right? They should not be spending more time on the more wrench time, less system time.
Yeah, certainly. And we want that wrench time to be productive and not based on repair work. And I think, Bob, you and I met at Streamline earlier this year. We've seen each other at a couple of other conferences, and I'm looking forward to seeing both of you there. I'm looking forward to that presentation. And I just want to remind everyone that these gentlemen are going to be there to help you. It's not about selling you anything. It's about giving you strategies around how you can improve your asset management in several different ways. This was episode 3 of Asset Operations in Action with the AMI Smart Scheduler. And you can check out IT Xperts Hub at ITXperts. Get rid of the E. It's ITXpertshub, ITXpertshub.com. And you can also connect with Vivek and Bob on LinkedIn. If you're coming out to Streamline conferences in February, that's February 9th through 12th, 2026 in Greenville, South Carolina. We're going to have a bigger venue. It's going to be loaded with industry pros. You're going to see Vivek doing his presentation. You can grab Bob and ask him anything you want to. Bunch of pros there. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here with me on CMMS Radio.
Thanks, Greg.
You got it. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.